Welcome to the Republican Roundtable. I'm Jacqueline America, your host. Our guest today is Nate George. He is running for state auditor. Thank you for being here, Nate.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So you are running for state auditor. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm the mayor of Brand, Minnesota, homemade pie capital of the state.
Okay.
But grew up in Cottage Grove, so that's where I went to high school. Married, 5 kids, range in age from 21 to 6.
Okay.
4 girls, 1 boy. So it's a busy household. 21 or almost 21 years in the U.S. Air Force Reserve.
Great.
3-time combat veteran, and work full time as a director of licensing and investigations for Tribal Gaming Regulatory Agency, which is a really fancy term for I audit and oversee casinos and make sure that they're following gambling laws.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, and then that's my full-time job, and then being the mayor is another part-time job. So.
Sure. Okay. So So obviously, with the casino stuff, you probably have some great qualifications to be auditor.
Yeah. Well, I like to tell people I do it every day. So you can't get much more qualified than that. In fact, we did some research after jumping into the race, and if you're just looking at it from a qualifications standpoint, I'm the most highly qualified candidate in this race in the last 50 years. So,
oh wow,
it's something to be super proud of. Aside from my work experience, I've got education in law and criminal justice and law enforcement and business management. So a degree in each of those.
Wow.
And
okay.
certified paralegal, and I'll have my certified fraud examiner's credential coming up this summer here. So.
My goodness, you're probably the best educated person in our state right now.
Well, you know that we haven't had someone in that auditor's office in 50 years who actually had a background in what that job does.
Right.
And so it's no surprise, or it should be no surprise, why we haven't seen anything productive come out of that office in that time frame. So.
Right. Yeah. So what does the state auditor do? What are responsibilities?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
We really don't have one.
Yeah, they don't even know it exists. And so the state auditor, the name itself is actually kind of a misnomer. It doesn't audit the state government, that is. It audits local government. So everything county level and below. So counties, cities, townships, school boards, some special tax districts in there too, like firefighter relief associations and stuff like that. All of that falls under the purview of the state auditor's office. So about 4,300 local government entities statewide, and somewhere over $60 billion in local government spending is all monitored by the state auditor's office.
Is that cities or counties or both? Or?
All of the above.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you audit records?
Yeah, so every local government entity in the state is required to have an annual audit. And so those results get sent to the state auditor's office, except for a handful of cities, like the larger cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Duluth. They actually have their audits done by the state auditor's office.
Okay, all right. So in those audits, would you spot patterns comparing like other cities or?
Yeah, and that's really where this idea of qualifications really comes into play. That people really miss this aspect of it. Just because you can balance a checkbook doesn't mean you can be a state auditor, unfortunately. There's actually a lot that goes into it, and so that's why there are professional certifications for it. It's knowing what type of fraud exists, what to look for, how to look for it, how to detect it, and that's a lot of the reasons why we have issues that we have today is because we're lacking the leadership aspect that sets the tone, that sets the expectations, that sets the standards, and how we're detecting fraud.
Right, and we've had high-profile fraud cases here in Minnesota. I mean, it's like the seed that just exploded across the country.
Right.
So, as the legal authority of the state auditors, what would you do differently, or what would you do to oversight and detect problems?
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff that we're hearing about in the headlines, and being the national embarrassment for right now,
Yeah.
a lot of that actually falls outside the purview of the state auditor's office, like Feeding Our Future, Medicaid. Those are state programs that the state auditor doesn't have the authority
Okay.
to audit or investigate. So that actually falls to the legislative auditor's office.
Okay.
And so what we're focused on is the local government piece of it. The stuff that doesn't always grab the headlines, but is still equally important because it impacts your wallet.
Sure.
It's when governments are losing money to fraud, it's money that wouldn't have had to been taxed in the first place. And so it's money that should be staying in your wallet to begin with. And so that's where we really come in and look at how local governments are managing your tax dollars. Are they, when they are using public funds, are they using them appropriately? Are their accounting standards up to the standards that the state auditor's office has set for them? And when they have their annual audits done, are the audits finding any material findings, like serious things that are wrong with their whole process when it comes to finances that could lead to misuse of public funds or fraud? So we look at all those things and we see if anything needs to be investigated further, if we just need to make a recommendation, say, hey, here's where you could use improvement and here's how we recommend you do it. And if it gets to the point of crossing that line into criminal, then we take that case and we make sure that it's a solid case and we have to pass it over to a prosecutor. Okay. And then at the end of the day, it's up to the prosecutor to decide if they're going to.
Would that be the Attorney General? Or?
That's one of them.
Okay.
Yep. So either a county attorney or a county prosecutor or Attorney General.
Okay.
And so a lot of that stuff just doesn't get done nowadays. And part of it is because there's no accountability on prosecutors for not prosecuting fraud. They're kind of left to their own devices to decide whether they're going to do with it or not. And so one of the things that I want to do is, one, create a proactive incentive for local governments to be voluntarily compliant. And it's a bill that I have drafted that would set a minimum benchmark when they're receiving a fraud risk assessment. Okay, they're going to get a score. So how well do they protect your money from fraud? And they have to meet.
Who is they?
Local government.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And they have to meet a minimum score in order to qualify for any state funding. And so if you don't meet that score, then your focus should be on getting your house in order and protecting the funds that you have before you start asking the Minnesota taxpayers for more money.
What types of items would be in that score?
Yeah, so it gets informed by several different inputs. It's going to look at internal controls. So what kind of systems do you have in place to ensure that you're minimizing the opportunity for fraud to occur?
Can you give an example of that?
Things like separation of duties. So can one person, make a purchase request and write the check for that request and sign that check?
Like a city attorney or something like that? Or?
Yeah, it should go through multiple steps.
Okay.
No one person should have control over the entire purchasing process. Mm-hmm. Okay. Same thing with accounts receivables. So when people are sending in their utility payments and stuff like that, it shouldn't be in the hands of one person to receive that money, record it, and make sure that it gets deposited. Because if they are, then they can easily steal that money and cover their tracks by doctoring the documents. Liquor stores, municipal liquor stores are a big source of fraud and internal theft just because of the nature of government operating in a very cumbersome bureaucratic way. Yeah. They're not very quick to react to things. And so you get a lot of skimming, inventory theft, and city employees doctoring inventory documents to
that's
cover it
not
up. Those are all different kinds of fraud and theft that a certified fraud investigator would know to look for.
Sure. Okay.
So,
And so you have a system, or the bill is to
yep.
to follow that, or to
Yeah, so the bill is House File 4914, so HF 4914, and then it has a Senate companion bill, and it's sitting in the legislature as we speak, waiting for its first committee hearing. And so it would mandate the use of that score system. The state auditor's office could do it right now if they wanted to. They have the tools and the resources to do it. They're just not doing it.
Huh.
And so this would make it mandatory for, regardless of who becomes the next state auditor, they have to implement this system. And then it would publish that information on an online dashboard, so it increases transparency and accountability in the such that everybody's dirty laundry is out there for everyone to see. So the city of Bloomington, city of Braham, county of Hennepin, how each and every single one of them rates when it comes to fraud mitigation
awesome.
is easily accessible on that dashboard and available to the public.
to be a technology available. Would regular citizens be able to look at that as well, or
Absolutely.
just?
It would be as simple as, most of the techie piece is in the background, setting it up, collecting that data, plugging it into the dashboard. But the whole idea is to make it user-friendly for the general public. So all the general public would have to do is pull up this online dashboard, type in, city of Bloomington or whatever.
Wow, that's cool.
And then, boom, up pops their score.
Sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then the other thing that we have, actually, the Republican-endorsed Attorney General candidate, Ron Schutz, and I are collaborating on a joint task force plan that we would implement if we both got elected. And it would stand up a joint fraud task force, and it would allocate resources from both of our offices, so the Attorney General's office and the State Auditor's office. We would loop in other state partners like the Legislative Auditor, the BCA, law enforcement, and federal partners as well. And it would set up what I call MINFIC, or it's the Minnesota Fraud Intelligence Center. And it would be kind of like a criminal intel cell, where they're receiving and disseminating information that is pertinent to law enforcement, right? Well, this would operate in a similar way, but they would be receiving and disseminating information regarding fraud. And so it would be informed by the fraud risk score concept, because they would identify those high-risk areas. And so they can target those high-risk entities for further investigations and further auditing to figure out what's going on and attack the problem before it becomes a multi-million-dollar scandal.
Wow. So that'd be all connected then,
Correct.
and that would be helpful to find patterns.
Exactly.
And then,
Yep. Fraud is rarely ever, it's not a single actor that is the cause of fraud. Fraud is a lack of leadership,
sure.
leadership failure, and setting that environment that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, communicating and
Yep.
sharing efforts, and people that have a backbone to enforce
Right.
and stick up and not let things go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
It's
they're
as
friends.
simple as walking in there on day one and saying, okay, we're not going to allow this anymore. And I empower you to do your job. And as long as you're doing your job, I will support you every step of the way.
Sure.
Just that alone would be a whole new start.
What are some other irregularities that you'd look for?
When it comes to local government fraud, yeah, so a lot of it is, or some other things would be like, we look for sharp increases in spending, unexplained, skyrocketing funding. Maybe there's someone trying to cover up a fraud scheme by, moving money around from different accounts. Constant moving of fund balances from one account to another account is a red flag generally. Sudden decreases in balances So we have the sharp increase, and then we also have the sharp negative balances. Where's that money going? We're supposed to be budgeting. We should have money that lasts us consistently throughout the year. Why all of a sudden are you now negative 50 grand? All of those things are just little pieces of the thread that you got to start pulling on,
Right.
to figure out what's really going on, because there's usually several layers in place to try to cover up fraud, and you have to peel back those layers one by one in order to get to the source.
Yeah.
And then there's a way to do that, and again, if you're not trained in how to do that, you're not going to be able to do it
Sure.
successfully.
So that would be like raising taxes on gas prices, and then saying that it would be to help redo the roads and fix the roads up, and then there's no money to fix the roads. That something like that, or
Yeah, well, it would be more specific. So it would be like the tax, having to raise the tax levy to cover the poor performance of the municipal liquor store.
okay,
And so you start digging into why the liquor store is not performing, and you look at your procurement logs, you look at your financial statements, you look at your inventory logs, you look at your cash flow logs and statements, and all those things, all of these terms that most people don't even know what those are,
right. Mm-hmm.
that fraud examiners do know, because those are the pieces of the puzzle that are going to connect the dots. And so all the numbers have to match up at the end of the day. And so you start digging through all these different areas to find out where the numbers don't match, and that points you to the problem. And the problem could be in that situation where the liquor store employee is skimming money off the register.
Okay.
So it's a fraudulent sale scheme where they're upcharging the customer when they ring up the item. They're taking the difference in cash, and the inventory is walking out the door. So the
Sure.
inventory doesn't match the cash on hand levels.
So would you investigate that too, or is that
Yep.
more the okay? So you
Yep, those are all things that the auditor would look at and ought to be flagged in an audit.
Sure.
So
So what kind of reforms could be made to kind of balance the budget for more consistently for taxpayers? Because
yeah,
and we've become one of the highest tax states.
yeah.
It's hard.
For the last 50 years straight, government or state and government spending has increased at the same rate almost. They're nearly identical. Year over year, it hasn't stopped going up. Every single year we spend more money than the previous year. And so eventually we're going to reach a breaking point, right? Because our wages aren't going up at the same rate. And so we're going to run out of money to fund our government, because we're going to be taxed out of it. And so part of it is the state auditor's office is, aside from the auditing piece and investigations piece, they're also supposed to be the watchdog and the advocate
Right.
for local
Yeah.
government and the local taxpayer. And they're supposed to be taking all this data that they gather every year from all of these audits and compiling it into reports that inform the governor's office and the state legislature on how their policies are either negatively or positively impacting local governments. And if they're not doing that adequately and they're not properly informing those entities, then it leads to more bad policy making. And that
Right.
continues to hurt local government. So that's one big piece of it, is actually digging into the data, putting forth accurate reporting, and properly informing the governor's office and the state legislature on how their policies are impacting local government.
Sure. So I live in Robbinsdale. In
Mhm.
the last 7.5 years, our taxes have almost doubled.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep.
And it doesn't seem like we're getting any really retribution, or it doesn't seem like people are, the same people are in play. They're not,
Yep.
no one's being accountable for it. What would you think, how can we hold people accountable? What would you, as the auditor, what would you do?
Yeah, and that's a problem statewide. communities of all sizes are facing the same problem. Part of it is just poor fiscal management. They're not watching their money closely enough. They're not sticking to their budgets. That was a problem in Bram. They were $800,000 over budget on a $2 million budget.
And what's the population in Bram?
About 1,800.
Wow.
So that's a lot for
Yeah.
for that size of a community. And so you just at some point you have to stop spending money. You have to know where you're at in your budget, and if you're not tracking that, that's that oversight piece and the
Right.
governance piece.
Right.
And so, citizens can hold their county or their councils accountable by making sure that they're actually keeping an eye on the budget and
Right.
where the city's financial situation is at any point in time.
Sure.
They should be able to answer that. Here's how much money we have in the bank right now. Here's where we're on track. Are we at 50% of our budget for the year, or are we trending higher? And what can we do to adjust? Every council member, every mayor should be able to answer those questions at any given time if they're staying on top of it.
Or governors.
Or governors.
Watched
And then
any
that's
of
the other.
those
That's the
things.
next piece of it: unfunded state mandates and bad policy making in St. Paul, and that's something that local government can use their voice to stand up against and speak out against. There's actually a process in state statute that allows local municipalities to pass a resolution objecting to an unfunded state mandate, and that resolution gets filed with the state auditor's office and the governor's office, and it prompts in the legislature, and it prompts a review by the legislature to reassess that unfunded state mandate and make whatever reforms are being suggested.
Would an example of that be some of the medical, like the hospitals and the smaller hospitals outside of the cities? Would that be an example?
So a perfect
or?
example would be like the Paid Family Medical Leave Act that is impacting everybody, especially local small businesses, small towns, small governments who maybe have very few employees. Like Bram, we have 3 employees in our city hall. If one of them goes out, you're seeing an impact to the ability of our ability to provide services at that point. We have 2 people in our public works department. If one of them goes out for 13 weeks, you have one person plowing snow, cutting grass, doing all the things. And so we passed a resolution under Chapter 6 of Minnesota state statutes that objected to the Paid Family Medical Leave Act, and we recommended reforms be added into it that would exempt local governments and small businesses. And so hopefully we'll see a bill this next legislative session to make those changes.
So that gives mayors and city councils and things some way to advocate for their, and then why hasn't that been addressed? It doesn't seem like there's anybody really, you can make the complaints and nothing's being done.
Well, and again, here the state auditor should be leading that charge.
Yeah.
Because they have all the data, and they should be testifying in front of the legislature saying, "You're killing small town Minnesota.
Right.
You need to make some changes here." And then when it comes to actual local leaders themselves, many are hesitant. They hide behind this nonpartisan title or label at the local level, and they don't want to stir the pot or rock the boat by speaking out against the state policy because they feel that there could be retribution in some way, shape, or form. And there's some reason behind that. I mean, we got state legislators this last year introducing a bill to penalize local governments who fly the old state flag.
Right.
You know.
Old state flag. There.
Right, that one.
Yep.
And it's our choice.
Yeah.
You can't penalize us for that. That would be like penalizing people for flying another flag that people felt was racist or discriminatory or whatever.
And couldn't back it up.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but the majority of a lot of local government funding comes from state aid every year, and so they tend to be more cautious about speaking out against the state because they don't want to see any potential financial repercussions for it.
Sure. Well, you sound like a good watchdog to me.
Well, I try to be.
Very knowledgeable. I've learned a lot of things from you tonight, so thank you for being here.
You're very welcome.
So what would you like people to remember about your campaign?
Yeah.
What's,
You know, like I said before, for 50 years we've had somebody in this office that had no business being there. You know, the last good one was, Patty Anderson about 20 years ago.
yeah.
She happened to also be the last Republican. Everybody else has been career politicians, school teachers, nobody with a background in investigations, auditing, local government. And I'm the first candidate in 50 years to come along who has all of it in one package. And so this is really an opportunity to get somebody in there that can actually legitimately do something.
Sure.
Because they already know how to do it.
Right.
And so, I always say being a good pilot doesn't mean you're a good mechanic. Just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're going to be good at another thing.
Right.
And that's some of the rhetoric that I hear from, my opponents is that, well, I'm really good at this, so that makes me qualified to be a state auditor. Well, that's not true.
And with your education and background, you can pull from all kinds of different areas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot to it. It's not just oversight and auditing. It's building cases that are actually going to be successful in court.
Right.
Because none of what you do is worth anything if you don't get to hold anybody accountable at the end of the day.
Sure.
And it's the prosecutor that does that. The state auditor doesn't get to hold people accountable. Right. And so I want people to remember that, and then I want them to know that I'm not doing this because I have my own political career ambitions. I could easily go, I have a full-time job, I could just keep doing that. I could be making, $500,000 a year with my background and credentials. I'm doing it because this is what Minnesota needs to get back on track.
Right.
And I have no aspirations.
And you have 5 kids.
Yeah.
They deserve a future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so does everybody else's kids. I don't care what political background you are.
Right.
Bad policies and bad politics negatively impact everybody.
All right. Well, how can we find out about your campaign?
You can go to my website, nategeorge.com.
Okay.
You can also find me on Facebook,
Okay.
Nate George for MN State Auditor.
We'll put that on the bottom here too.
Yeah.
We'll scroll it for you.
Great. You can call me. You'll see my contact info on there. You can email me anytime.
Yeah.
I'm very responsive. I love talking to people and teaching them about the role.
Yeah.
And so if you reach out with a question and you want to know more about something, I will talk to you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being here. Like I said, I've learned a lot from you today,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we got to get you elected. So.
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're a great guy.
Thank you.
Great American.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us at the Republican Roundtable. We'll see you next time.